Happening now on Grid Tonight, the 2026 NASCAR schedule for all three National Series was unveiled earlier today. What are some of the most notable changes? Nice Motorsports announced major changes to its ownership structure with team founder Al Nice scaling back his involvement. Will this new era of leadership help them return to being weekly contenders? Negotiations for an IndyCar race in Mexico City are reportedly entering a critical stage at this 11th hour. Can IndyCar finally seal the deal, or will it all fall apart? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grit Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lamb. We have a full house tonight. With me are Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports, Tanner Smith from Pitbox Press, and Ben Snyder from Grid Encore and LastCar.info. We encourage everyone to interact with us in the chat. Support us through Super Chat and visit gridnetworktv.com for our latest content. Have a lot of NASCAR news to talk tonight, so I'll hand it over to you, Josh, with our top story this evening. It's a big one.
It is a big one. Thank you, Kobe. Evening, Ben. Evening, Tanner. Nice to have you both back on the show. Let me just start tonight with Matt White. What have you done? You've missed the biggest show of the year when we talk about the long 38 race season. Okay, let's get straight into it, boys. Earlier today, the 2026 NASCAR schedule was released to the public with some major changes that have fired up fans and industry members alike in both a positive and negative way. Starting with the Cup Series schedule, the Class Exhibition race will return to Bowman Gray Stadium at the beginning of February, followed by the season-opening Daytona 500 on Sunday, February 15th. The Darlington Spring Race will move up a few weeks from early April to Sunday, March 22nd. However, one of the first major changes is Watkins Glen is moving from August to a much earlier date on Sunday, May the 10th. Now, people have already expressed concerns about Watkins Glen moving up to May due to the unpredictable nature of the weather in upstate New York during this time of the year. Now, after the Glen, the All-Star race returns, but at a different track. The 1 million exhibition race moves to Dover Motor Speedway, which is losing a points-paying race. Now, Dover doesn't have any lights, so this All-Star race would more than likely take place during the daytime unless they decide to install some temporary lighting. Now, one of the biggest problems of Dover having a daytime All-Star race on Sunday, May the 17th, is the fact that it will directly clash with Indianapolis 500 qualifying, which will also be shown on Fox Sports. Now, once Fox's coverage ends at Dover, Amazon Prime returns as well with the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway on Sunday, May the 24th, followed by Nashville, Michigan, Pocono, and San Diego. NASCAR's return to Southern California for a street race at the Naval Base, Colorado. I can't pronounce it. I did it wrong again. The Naval Base of Coronado. I can never say that as an Anglo-Saxon. I do apologize to American viewers. And that's going to be on Sunday, June the 21st for Father's Day weekend. Mexico City isn't returning next year. Now, the race in San Diego will be the last race for Amazon Prime Video before TNT Sports returns on Sunday, June 28th, at Sonoma Raceway. Now, the road course kicks off the 2026 in-season challenge, which should be more friendly to our brackets compared to the Echo Park Speedway earlier this year as it moves to the third race in the in-season challenge. Now, as previously reported, the Chicago Street Race won't return in 2026, but NASCAR will remain in the Chicago market with the return of Chicagoland Speedway on Sunday, July 5th. Now, with Dover taking the All-Star race for the first time since September 29th, 1996, North Wilkesboro Speedway will host a points race on Sunday, July 19th, which is expected to take place under the lights in the Wilkes country. Now, after the in-season challenge final race on TNT Sports, the Brickyard 400 and Indianapolis Motor Speedway will be on Sunday, July the 26th. The Cup Series teams will get a second weekend off alongside Easter weekend in the first weekend of April. Now, despite rumors of Iowa Speedway being off the schedule, it's going to return to a Sunday on August the 9th and to kick off NBC Sports' coverage once again. Now, New Hampshire Motor Speedway is in the playoffs this year, but it will move to the penultimate race of the regular season in June in 2026, while Daytona returns as the regular season finale on Saturday, August 29th. The only major changes to report on the playoffs is, of course, Phoenix Raceway losing the championship race but maintaining a playoff date on Sunday, October 18th. Although many people have been asking for the Charlotte Roval to go away, it's back on Sunday, October 11th. However, a very popular move that many already praised months ago when it was announced was the return of Homestead Miami Speedway as the season-ending championship race on Sunday, November the 8th. Now, although the playoff races are listed by each round, NASCAR hasn't determined the playoff format for 2026, which could have minor changes or remain exactly the same. All the graphics in this segment are courtesy of NASCAR. Well, Ben and Tanner are with me to discuss this as well because Matt White decided to have a weekend off and everything's gone nuts. So, Ben, starting with you on this one. We're buckled in, mate. Go for it, because one of your pros and cons on the 2026 NASCAR Cup schedule. And don't worry, I've brought the alcohol. Go for it.
I stopped at Taco Bell. I got a Baja Midnight on my way over here, so I'm good to go. But I'm going to let Tanner take most of the pros and cons here. I think it's only right for me as a Delawarean, born and raised, even though I live in New England now. Grew up there, been to several race weekends at Dover International Speedway. I refuse to call it Dover Motor Speedway. I'm sorry. It should be Dover Downs International Speedway if we want to go way back. But I will say this as a NASCAR fan, it's whatever. Dover's a track on the schedule that is just kind of so-so. Racing there hasn't been particularly great in the Gen 6 or Next Gen era. Ratings and attendance have been pretty average. It's just kind of been there, right? So, they want to rotate the All-Star race around, and, I think Dover's an okay choice. It's certainly a choice. Whatever, right? As a Delawarean, it's kind of depressing to think that this track has been on the schedule with at least one, usually two, points-paying Cup Series races since 1969. And for the first time since 1968, 2026 will be the first year where the track doesn't have a points-paying race on the Cup Series schedule. They do still have the All-Star race for whatever that's worth, although from what I understand, half the fan base, if NASCAR Twitter is anything to judge by, seems to think that the race has lost its luster. It's kind of, run its course. Maybe we don't even need an All-Star race anymore. The All-Star race has been through all sorts of chaos and controversy over the last several years. We had a nice 3-year run at North Wilkesboro, but I remember the days of Texas Motor Speedway and how controversial that 2022 finish was. And $1 million certainly doesn't go as far as it used to. So, I think that it's a nice consolation to have. I know we're going to have the Xfinity Series and Truck Series there as well. But, quite honestly, I think about what this means for the future of a track, and the SMI purchase a couple of years ago, like I said, Dover Motor Speedway still makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit because it just looks wrong to see that track under the same branding as several other tracks on the schedule. It's not an independent facility anymore in that same way. It makes me a little bit anxious and nervous, and I already was a little bit anxious and nervous for what it might mean for the track's future, because like I said, it is ultimately at the end of the day just an exhibition race. You're putting it, I would imagine, because of the Air Force Base nearby, you can't install. It's why Dover doesn't have lights, even though it's only a mile track. You can't install some sort of temporary lighting system, I would imagine. I'd be shocked if they could find a way to host it at night. So you imagine it's going to be in the late afternoon at the earliest, and it's going to go up directly against Indianapolis 500 qualifying. I imagine the ratings will not be great. I imagine the attendance, to be quite honest, won't be as great as they're hoping. And then what if SMI looks at that and says, this is a track that we look at it and we say, what's our most valuable or least valuable property here? We've given this an exhibition race, an all-star race. It's supposed to be a marquee crown jewel event on the schedule. And we look at that and we say, if the ratings and attendance are great, what does that mean for tracks that we might start to wonder, do they belong on the schedule if we want to expand our markets and go to a new track or a new facility in the future? What's going to be on the chopping block among the SMI tracks? It just makes me a little bit nervous for 2027 and beyond. So that obviously is a big one for me as a Delawarean. I'm not thrilled about the news, but I did just this afternoon get an email from my grandmother. God bless her. She was asking, are tickets going to be super expensive or super hard to come by, not knowing nearly as much about the sport as I do, talking about the grandstands and how NASCAR boomed 20 years ago and how a lot of the grandstands were covered by advertising banners and have been for years. There will be no issue, I think, getting a ticket for this event. It might still be a little bit more expensive, and I think it's justified in that regard. But I may very well be going there because my grandmother's in her early 80s now. You got to take that chance to take her to the track if she's asking for it. And also, the way the schedule is working these days, you just never know. Maybe Dover's days might be numbered in that regard. I hope and pray that I'm wrong, but it does leave me wondering a little bit what it means for the track's future. So I'll just hit a few other minor points here. My other biggest gripe, like you mentioned, Josh, Watkins Glen in the middle of May, I think is a very high risk, low reward situation, best case scenario. From what I understand, it could still be in the high 40s, low 50s that time of year. I imagine a lot of campers probably don't even break out their camping gear until after Memorial Day weekend. So I don't know what that's going to mean for that part of the schedule. We can get into Xfinity and trucks, I think, a little bit later here. But there are certainly a lot of positives to take away from the schedule. Thank goodness Iowa's back. That market, I think, has been under a microscope in recent years, especially on the IndyCar side. We'll see what happens when that schedule comes out. I think a lot of people are expecting that one to disappear, but at least for the Cup Series side of things, to get that back is certainly a positive. We still have a street race. Obviously, we already knew that going into this week, but Chicagoland coming back, I think to stay in that market is a massive plus as well. So it's not all doom and gloom, but I must confess, when I got the news about Dover yesterday, we got the rumors the All-Star race was coming. We didn't realize that was going to be the only time the Cup cars were on track there next year. And it leaves me with mixed feelings at best. I do have to confess that.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Ben, when I saw that Dover was going to be hosting the All-Star race, it made me question so many things. Number one, the ownership of that track, because do you misunderstand what Dover, like what good racing at Dover looks like? Because I feel like a truncated, shortened race is not going to produce as great of a race there as they would probably hope to fulfill for their audience. But I'm going to hope that Goodyear hopefully provides a great tire that wears really fast and really well, and that can produce a lot of action, because apparently with Richmond that did the trick. But just to get into the meat of this with pros and cons, I'll start with my pros. Moving the championship race to Miami, if we're going to have a one-race playoff for the title between four drivers, honestly, I would much prefer it be at Homestead, Miami than anywhere else on the Cup calendar. And that's coming from somebody that has attended multiple Phoenix races, multiple Phoenix championship races, because I used to live out there. So, and again, that's not disrespect to Phoenix. I still very much love Phoenix Raceway and love that it's still getting 2 dates on the calendar, even though some people will probably disagree with that. Moving on through the schedule, though, moving Darlington up, I don't see that as a negative. That's honestly the place on the schedule that it used to hold about the 5th or 6th race of the season in the sports glory days. So I'm glad to see it kind of get its date back more or less. Martinsville staying in about the same place. That's good. My biggest positive outside of Homestead is 2 off weekends. Thank God. I feel so terrible for the drivers, the teams, anybody in and around the sport that they have to cover 28 consecutive weeks before the season ends this season. Don't love that, so I'm glad that there is that there is at least some adjustment being made to that. Bristol being at that time of year, honestly, I think it and Dover should have kind of switched spots in some way. And have Bristol have the All-Star race, because if you remember in 2020 when we had to obviously shift a lot of the schedule forward into the summer months, Bristol got a really great late spring date during the day, and it was super hot. The tires wore out really well. Drivers were racing all over the racetrack. I felt that was Bristol at its peak potential, and I don't feel like we've seen a better race at Bristol since that day. I would have liked to have seen a Bristol race take place at that time of year, but apparently the people at NASCAR disagree with me, so I'll leave it there. Kansas in April. I think that's a tough stretch, but an even tougher stretch is easily Watkins Glen in May, and Ben already put it perfectly. The weather around that time of year is extremely unpredictable and volatile, so I just don't think that is necessarily an intelligent decision on NASCAR's part, but we'll see if it works out for him. As far as the rest of the schedule here, obviously I love the San Diego street race. I love that we're back in that market. Would have preferred if we were actually in the city, seeing some of the sights and scenes of that city. I guess the military base is the second best thing. Chicagoland. Thank God I'm going to finally have a race within about 2 to 3 hours from me for once. That isn't the street race. And not that I had anything against the street race. It's just that it would have been tremendously expensive to stay directly in the city. So having Chicagoland be a bit further outside of Chicago and Joliet, I'm going to be able to actually go to that event and probably cover it for Grid Network. I also like the fact that though the round of 32 for the in-season tournament is going to start on a road course, I do like that the spread of races is a lot more balanced compared to this season's. We're going to have one road course, a 1.5 mile intermediate, a super speedway style track in Atlanta. I like that it's in the round of 8 rather than the round of 32, where it just completely derailed the entire point of the tournament this year. And then we're going to have North Wilkesboro getting a points race. That's always good. Definitely highly anticipated for those in that region that have been clamoring for 30 years, 3 decades to get a points race back there. So I hope somebody visits the grave sites of Junior Johnson and Benny Parsons and lays an extra flower or two over towards them. And then obviously capping that in-season tournament off with Indianapolis before we head into an off week. Yay! Iowa staying on the schedule is obviously a positive. Hopefully they will use that opportunity that it's going to be a little bit later in the year to finish the repave on that track, because right now, as we've discussed at length, it's terrible. I do think that New Hampshire at that time of year is a solid move. That said, I really liked when it was in the playoffs. I think it's a good track to have there, but I also think it's a better track to have there when you have Phoenix as the title race versus Homestead. So obviously moving that track out a little bit doesn't hurt anything, I don't think, and probably moves it into a slightly warmer time of year. As far as the playoffs are concerned, the first round's exactly the same as this year. Kansas, Vegas, Charlotte, Roval, Phoenix really have a problem with that stretch for logistical reasons. I think had we moved the Roval to the top of the round, then made it Kansas, Las Vegas as the end of the round of 12, and then we start the round of 8 with Phoenix, I think that would have been a bit more of an equitable layout for the schedule. But you know, we're always at the whim of Marcus Smith when it comes to the SMI dates, so I'm sure that we push to have the Roval for maximum chaos and playoff, plot lines. So the end of the schedule looks, relatively as you would expect outside of, and I'm always going to buck against this, Talladega, round of 8, you do not need to be there. What is a polar bear doing in Arlington, Texas? Things of that nature. And that's coming from a guy whose birthday is going to literally be the day that they're in Talladega. So, having a race on my birthday, it should be enticing, but I hate everything about it. So, to sum up everything, I think some positives here are Atlanta is not starting the in-season tournament. I think that Dover being the all-star race is a massive con, not for Dover as a whole. I think it would have been cool if it was in addition to a points race, but unfortunately it isn't. I think that Bristol isn't late enough in the schedule for the spring race. Texas being on here at all. San Diego, obviously loved them getting a street race. I love that Iowa staying on the schedule. Chicagoland's return, even if it's at the, even if it's because the street race is being moved somewhere else. We do have the possibility of always returning for the street race, so I don't see that as a total loss. And obviously, the logistical stuff going on in the playoffs, I don't love it. I think having the teams go from Kansas to Las Vegas and then to the Charlotte Roval and then to ship them all the way back out to Phoenix and then back to Talladega the next week makes literally zero sense. But other than that, I don't really have a whole lot of complaints with the schedule, but the ones I do have complaints about, they're pretty strong. So hopefully they can take heed for 2027 and adjust accordingly. But again, talking about NASCAR here, they never listen to anybody but themselves.
No, that's very, very true as well. We'll go into why they don't listen in a few moments' time. Adam's very happy to see that North Wilkesboro is finally getting a point back for the first time since 1996. I think that's a general consensus that everybody's happy. It should have been that way from the start. Joe says Dover was the race that ran the same time as the 2020 Indy 500 in August. Track needs a better date and a points race. Yeah, it was slap bang between the two. I'm thinking about attending the North Wilkesboro race in July, says Adam as well. That's going to be fantastic as well to go into. I'll agree about New Hampshire being in August. It's a nice move. There is a better one to go through. Joe says that is my concern as well. SMI will neglect Dover. Yeah. IMS, presumably. Yeah. To come into it. I don't know how and why we've got this situation where Fox have decided to put them at the same time, because Fox would have had a lot of say in that. So it's a bit on the nose with that. We'll get, I think, into Hots and Nots later. But before we get into our next schedule, let's quickly address some news that set the stage for today's schedule release. Now, in 2026, the NASCAR Xfinity Series will become the NASCAR O'Reilly's Auto Parts Series. Now, Xfinity has been the title sponsor of NASCAR's second-tier series since 2015, and now O'Reilly Auto Parts is set to officially take over on January the 1st, 2026. Now, NASCAR President Steve O'Donnell believes that the O'Reilly Auto Parts will be more relatable to NASCAR, as it was born in America and built on hard work and drive of passionate people. It does look quite nice, though, on the side, I must admit, but it's a mouthful to say. And I personally would think I would much rather go for a Chalice or a Trophy Series, an alternative to Cup, especially as it seems like we're going to make it pretty much a second fiddle for the next year. The season kicks off at Daytona on Saturday, February the 14th, and to many people's delight, Rockingham Speedway returns on Easter weekend on Saturday, April the 4th. Now, Kansas moves from late September to Saturday, April 18th. And just like the Cup Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series will also visit San Diego for the first time and return to Chicagoland Speedway on Saturday, July the 4th. Now, after only going to one date this year, the Darlington race gets its full race date back on Saturday, September 5th. The series also won't return to the Chicago Street Course and Mexico City. They'll also won't be joining the Truck and Cup Series at North Wilkesboro in July. But the big disappointment to us here at the Portland-based Grid Network team and others in the Pacific Northwest is that the Portland International Raceway also got dropped in the 2026 schedule. Now, about an hour before tonight's show, Grid Network reached out to the track for comment, and we received this statement from the PAIR General Manager of Ron Hugel. He says, "I am incredibly proud of all that our team here at Portland did to make these last 4 years of NASCAR a fun and exciting event. PIR looks forward to the series returning in the coming years as well." Now, that's interesting as well to say that, because during a media availability section this afternoon with the Portland NASCAR executive Ben Kennedy said Portland coming off the schedule shouldn't be viewed as NASCAR abandoning the Pacific Northwest market, because they've had discussions about having a Cup Series race in that region in the future. Kennedy added that NASCAR is interested in exploring the as well. It's coming into it as well. Now, you throw me under the bus here, Kobe. I've just seen that. The Coronado. There you go. Mark it as well. Oh, no, it is Colorado. Oh, you've thrown me under the bus. See, that's why. You've thrown me under the bus there with that writing. I go back into it and say, no, that one is Colorado. See, it's the Anglo-Saxon in me. I can't pronounce the differences between the two because you can't get your tongue around it. Oh, that's a sneaky one. I'll get it back for that sometime later. Okay, Tanner, starting with you on that one. Putting our bias aside here at the Grid Network, how disappointing is it to see that the standalone weekend of Portland disappear? And do you have any other takeaways from what is now the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series?
Yeah, so as far as Portland's concerned, I was, obviously blessed with the opportunity yesterday to speak with defending Xfinity Series champion Justin Allgaier due to a Portland International Raceway media appearance that they granted to Grid Network. And again, just want to reiterate, I am very thankful that they gave us the opportunity for that access, and Justin was great to interview. And I look forward to everybody at Grid Network getting to see how that went soon in the future. So as far as Portland's concerned, I feel like this is an absolute net loss for NASCAR as a whole and the Xfinity Series. I mean, outside of Rockingham next year, tell me one date where they differ from the NASCAR Cup Series calendar as far as races that they have. Not races that they don't have, such as North Wilkesboro, which they just don't want Cup to put on a worse show than the Xfinity Series on a short track again. So I think that's a pretty open and shut case as to why that happened. But as far as, them leaving Portland, I mean, the Northwest market is just so valuable to, I think, the future of the sport and expansion. And we're just leaving it in the dust, just like we did with Mexico. And I just feel like that is absolutely a terrible decision. But at the end of the day, there's really not much we here at Grid Network can do about it. So, yeah, I hope that this is just ramping up for a much stronger return. It sounds like, based on PIR's statement, that they've had ongoing discussions with NASCAR to hopefully bring the series back, not just Xfinity, but hopefully more. I mean, you go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, they did have a truck series date here, which is, kind of where they got inroads with the NASCAR series. And as great as that is, I would love to see Cup make their way out there. I think they would put on a great show. Obviously, SVG would be pretty excited to see that track enter the schedule after his win there last year. But just to talk about the Xfinity Series broadly, like, this schedule is pathetic as far as I'm concerned. The Xfinity Series needs to have a life of its own. And I feel like tethering it so hard to the Cup Series calendar is doing not only the drivers, but the fans of the series a disservice. I feel like this series is kind of flailing in terms of Xfinity lifers and having its own identity outside of just being a support series for the Cup Series. And I just don't think that this is helping any with them creating their own identity. And with that said, obviously we love seeing Rockingham on the calendar, but we want to see more. I think, sending the Xfinity Series to Darlington twice, as cool as that is, just isn't necessary. You could have filled that date with South Boston, with Five Flags Speedway in Florida. You could have filled it with a number of tracks across the United States or, beyond. Let's not get too pigeonholed here. But, you could have filled it with all of these different dates that could have helped expand the Xfinity Series horizons. And instead, what we're doing is making it explicitly a support series for the NASCAR Cup Series. And I think that's a complete failure on Ben Kennedy's part. And I would love to see the 2027 schedule be a bit more ambitious and a bit more standalone. And as far as I'm concerned, I do think as far as the Cup schedule was concerned, it was, a good mixture of good and bad additions to the schedule, or subtractions, I should say. With the Xfinity Series, I just feel like it's nothing but subtractions here, and I think that's a big problem.
Yeah, tend to agree. I don't have too much to add on that. I'm very disappointed in the Xfinity schedule. Also, a little disappointed in the Truck Series schedule as well. I feel like it's
Not
very...
Xfinity.
Well, it's Xfinity now, isn't it?
It's
now,
Xfinity until 2026.
I'm going to keep calling it Xfinity for the rest of the year because I think O'Reilly doesn't get the
Let's call it the Chalice Series or the Trophy Series, please. Because it
Grand
doesn't
National.
look.
the Grand
National
What?
Series.
Give it a name.
or the Busch
Grand
Series.
National,
How
there we
about
go.
that?
Yeah,
the Busch was
give
right
it
there.
a name. He said about ranting. There's a name. Give it a name. Give it a proper name. Guys up the wall that we haven't got one. Go on, Ben.
Yes, also apologize. Apparently, I'm going to have to figure this out before the next show. My new studio space that I set up in my new apartment, I think I'm right next to my neighbor's front door right here, and I'm right next to the street right there on my other side. So apologies if any background noise is coming in here. But yes, for Portland, obviously, we're very biased here. Grit, I feel bad for Joe, who I've seen in the chat here tonight. So I'm glad that you're watching us, Joe. And I've got to say, maybe I owe you an apology because at least we still have Cup Series cars on track in Dover. The Xfinity cars won't be making the trip up to the Pacific Northwest next year, although they seem optimistic that maybe this is only a temporary goodbye for that track in that series. But yeah, I mean, the Xfinity Series, I don't think should just be NASCAR's version of Formula 2, where we have it's strictly developmental and strictly support series on almost every weekend. The series has cars on track. Totally agree with Tanner. I'd like to see some more standalones there. And yeah, like I was saying, for the truck series, I almost feel like it's too much in the other direction. I'm old enough to remember when the trucks didn't go to a road course at all, and now we have almost as many road courses on that schedule as we do from what we've been used to for Cup and Xfinity for a series that races about 10 fewer times per year. So yeah, like I said, there are certainly some great additions, some welcomed additions to these schedules, but the cons, I think Tanner put it perfectly. The cons are major cons and major things that I think should be things that we look at trying to remedy and fix as soon as possible. And the things that we've taken away, I can't say that I'm too happy about, especially for us here at the Grid Network. I'm curious to see what it says for the ARCA Menard Series West. I know the full ARCA schedule hasn't come out yet, but I couldn't help but notice Sonoma in their release said June 27th to 28th, Xfinity and Cup. There's no mention of ARCA West, and I had some people tell me, well, that maybe they're not going to do that until the full schedule comes out, and then they'll announce it. But Pocono's announcement confirmed that ARCA is going to be back there. So I feel like that's the Daytona 500 of the West Series. I would hope that they would be smart enough to find a way to keep that on the schedule, and Portland as well. Portland's been a great stop for the West Series. I wonder what this means for them. Obviously, they've gone to Portland before in years where the Xfinity Series or Truck Series haven't. But again, it makes me a little bit nervous for that schedule and what it means on that side of things as well.
Ben, I can't believe you're upset about the tiny ARCA Menard Series. I cannot believe it.
Don't get me started on that either. They cited essentially sports in their legal documents. They called ARCA tiny in their legal documents. They said the Cars Tour is proof that they're not a monopoly. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. You cannot be serious with it. It's a random debate for another time. Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
We are going to be in for a really long debate about this on one of our roundtables. As well, I've got another one to go back in because Matthew Owens has said as well, highly disappointed to not see more but less standalone weekends for the O'Reilly series. Thank you. I thought we would get back to having 3 to 6 a year with the CW's involvement, but apparently not. Nope. And that means me and him are going to be on the call a lot more than we thought we would be. If NASCAR wants to race in the Pacific Northwest, head back to Pikes Peak International Speedway in
yes,
Colorado. That's going to be my nemesis today. What originally made Kentucky, Gateway, Nashville, etc. cool was that you got to see bush and truck races at those tracks on their own, and in places like Nazareth, Memphis, Pikes Peak, and Myrtle Beach as well. Yeah, it goes into it. Now, once Cup went to Nashville, Kentucky and Gateway, the truck and Grand Nationals races at those places lost what made it special. Yes, I agree there. Right. Fingers crossed I could see Portland as a rotating road course every other year. That's more possible. SVG and the Weller Watkins Glen. Oops, NASCAR. Yeah, he's just going to walk it. I'd give him the trophy now. Or Connor Zilich for the Xfinity, despite the fact they might fall over. Oh, yeah, I think that's going to be pretty much the most, isn't it? Right. Just quickly, I want to know a quick question. Why do we not have a name for the Xfinity Series? Or, why is there no standard? Got the trucks, got the Cup. Why has that second series now lost its identity a bit? There's no name for it.
Ben, if you don't mind, I can probably take this one. That probably has more to do with selling the series itself. So the Cup Series had naming rights from 1971 onward to 2019. And that's because selling the entitlement sponsorship gave the sport a lot more money to play with, both with, enhancing the product and, obviously getting more eyeballs on it. It obviously helps you enhance your marketing budget when you get corporate sponsorship. Now the Cup Series is the Cup Series presented by, correct me if I'm wrong, Coca-Cola, Xfinity, which I think is why Xfinity is leaving the Xfinity Series. They're increasing their partnership with the Cup Series. And who's the other one? I know Busch, and there was a fourth. I think Geico was the fourth one.
But there was Geico. I don't know if anybody replaced it, though, because I feel like Geico maybe stepped back.
Yeah. So basically, it's a way for them to help market their series and, get a nice corporate emblem on everybody's fire suits so that they can quote it and say some catchy line during the post race and all that. I am a little curious because, obviously we've all gotten accustomed to all the drivers in the Xfinity Series talking about how, their car or their crew were as fast as Xfinity Internet. I'm wondering how we're going to parlay that with auto parts. Definitely intrigued how that's going to go, but essentially it's due to, having to have that entitlement sponsor to help boost up the funding of the series. And as far as the Xfinity Series is concerned, I would love to see it just go back to the Grand National Series presented by Busch or something like that. But I just don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon based on, obviously, what we've been presented with over the past week.
Yeah, it looks a complete and utter mess, doesn't it, as well, going into it. But anytime you hear Seth or myself say Grand National Series, that is us giving the series an identity to what was once the Busch Grand National Series. There. See, because already what I'm most worried about is that you only get 100 characters on the YouTube thumbnail name. That's going to take up quite a lot. We get a lot of names for these races. So, yeah, it's going to be long.
But the thing is, before Winston came in, wasn't Cup pre-modern era the Grand National Series? It was strictly stock at first, and then wasn't it Grand National?
You might be right, but the Busch Series didn't exist then because they had the Sportsman division.
That's true, but I'm just saying if you call it, if we try to give it the Grand National identity, and then you retroactively look back at what Cup used to be, I mean, I don't know that there's a perfect solution there, and that's why I think Xfinity got the best bang for their buck, because it would be called Nextel or Sprint or Monster Energy Cup. Everybody just shortened that to Cup. Everybody just shortens Craftsman or Camping World or Gander RV and Outdoor, whatever Marcus Lemonis wanted to call it on an annual basis. Everybody just shortened it to trucks, but there's nothing you can do here, so you have to call it by the series sponsor.
The Monster
that's the one thing.
NASCAR Cup Series.
I know,
Disgusting.
It bugs me. It bugs me because I come from a world where it's F1, F2, F3, F4, and it's all nice, and even Frecker has now become Freck. So it's all streamlined. It's nice. It's easy. And then you come here and you go, oh, you got Cup, Trucks, Monstrosity, and it's like even Arca's got a name. It's like, come on, guys. Give it something back. It always bugs me. I have no idea how I'm going to write the thumbnails next year. And good luck, Ben, on the Encore show. You're going to be, worn out before you even get to the end of the first sentence, especially if it's a really long race where you've got to say the name and then the race sponsor and then the track name. I'm not looking forward to that. WRC, WR2, WR3, MotoGP, Moto2, Moto3, NASCAR Cup, NASCAR 2, NASCAR 3. Yeah, do we go there? Or how far do we go? Now, the Xfinity Series needs a name. It needs a permanent name that it can then say it. So it's a NASCAR something series sponsored by the O'Reilly Auto Parts. That's what it needs. It needs a name. Get in the comments and let us know what you would name it as well. I suggested earlier Trophy. That makes nice sense, a Trophy Series, because you've got the Cup Series, Trophy Series, Truck Series. That's kind of nice and smooth lined. Chalice, but that's not really, that's more European than American. Let's just go for a Bud Light and then get it over with. I think I can live with that. But still, last but not least, here's the 2026 Craftsman Truck Series schedule, which obviously begins on Friday, the 13th at Daytona. That's going to be, just completely out there, isn't it? However, one of the biggest surprises is a NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader weekend with the Truck Series joining IndyCar on the streets of St. Pete on Saturday, February 28th. The Truck Series will have 5 road courses with St. Pete, Watkins Glen, San Diego, Lime Rock, and Charlotte Roval. Darlington's single race date will move up from late August to Friday, March 20th, with Kansas moving back from May to Saturday, September 26th. Dover is back on the schedule after the last few years away on Friday, May 15th. Now, they'll also be back at Rockingham for this. Sorry, Matthew Owens, Rockingham for the second consecutive year alongside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series on Friday, April the 3rd. Now, the series including one race at Martinsville, the spring race. Now, Las Vegas and Pocono are gone from the Truck Series schedule altogether. However, it was announced that the Arca Menard Series will return to Pocono next year to replace the truck race as well. Well, how shocked are you that the Truck Series will be joining IndyCar on the streets of St. Pete? And do you think an IndyCar driver could enter the NASCAR race? And please do feel free to share your thoughts on any other parts of the schedule as well. Personally, I can't wait. I think I'll finally get to call truck race.
Yeah, I think you mean the NTT IndyCar Series, Josh, since we're talking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I wonder how much
The ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. All that lot.
Yeah. It works, though, because when I was in middle school, I always wanted to go to the Izod stores when we were outlet shopping because they sponsored the IndyCar Series at the time there. So, I mean, I guess they are getting something for that. But, that was...
You had the name IndyCar. You had that name to go with it.
That's true.
Here, we don't have anything. We just got the NASCAR Series, whatever it's called. It's a phantom name.
Yeah, but no, I think that was probably the biggest shock out of everything, because you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't see any rumors that, I mean, like I said, we had heard rumors about Dover getting the All-Star race, North Wilkesboro getting a points race, certain pieces falling into place that we already knew. I had no idea that this was on the table, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. I don't think it's entirely unprecedented for a NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader. Of course, we tried that on the IMS road course a couple of times, and I think certain times in the past, I think maybe if I recall correctly, I think Texas maybe had trucks on a Friday night and then IndyCar Saturday night a couple of times. So I think it's a good move for cross promotion in that sense. I did see a tweet from James Hinchcliffe before we came on the air, tagging Spire Motorsports. He said, "I like trucks. Spire, do you know anybody?" So obviously James is he's in the Fox booth now. His IndyCar driving days are pretty much done, I think. But that would be a cool name to see get behind the wheel of a truck, or maybe we could see an active IndyCar driver try to make a one-off appearance. I think that would be a lot of fun for all the fans. And like I said, the cross promotion, the fans of both forms of motorsport here. This is just a great weekend and great announcement for them. But again, what I was saying earlier, this is one of 5 road courses on the Truck Series schedule. It does feel like trucks are a little bit road course heavy here because, there you go. You've got St. Petersburg, Watkins Glen. I'm really glad Lime Rock found a place to stay here, because I think it would have been a shame if that was a one and done. I would have loved to get out there myself this year, but just with all the other travel I was doing, just didn't work out. But they'll be on the streets of San Diego as well. And then, I haven't really touched on this yet, so I guess I'll touch on here a little bit. I feel like the Charlotte Roval has kind of run its course in that sense. If we're going to do the playoffs, I appreciate that there is a road course in the playoffs, because I think if we're going to do that, then you need to have as many different track types there during that stretch as possible. But especially, I know we're talking about trucks right now, but for Cup in the next gen era, I think the mile and a half is really putting on a good show. The road course is not so much. That to me was always a temporary solution, and the fact that we're now in, what is this going to be, year 9 of the Roval experiment, I feel like we've kind of reached a point where maybe we can go back to having that as an oval date. But and especially, again, given how many other new road courses we brought onto the schedule. But I think it's good that the series still has its standalones, and I think that there's a lot to like about what we've got for trucks coming in just a few months here in 2026.
I'm just going to go ahead and open up with the Roval portion of this. In 2021, Governor Cooper of North Carolina was able to give $40 million to 3 different facilities within the state to help bolster them and help in some cases repair them to make them more viable and race ready again to help enhance the tourism in the state of North Carolina. And this all came from Joe Biden's, 2021 Build Back Better bill. Obviously, that got a lot of talk when North Wilkesboro and then later Rockingham were both revived. But the biggest chunk went to Charlotte Motor Speedway. And in my opinion, it was used to help enhance the Roval portion of the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Do I agree with this? Absolutely not. Personally, I would like to have the second race of the NASCAR calendar at Charlotte Motor Speedway be also on the oval, just like the Coca-Cola 600. However, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And as much as I can rail against it, and as much as I would like for that to happen, it seems to me that them making this investment into the infield lighting system, so that way you can race under the lights at that track with NASCAR Cup cars, which infamously do not have headlights. I just think that's the direction they have cemented themselves into going forward, and we're probably not going to get out of this hell. As far as the rest of the schedule is concerned, though, let me touch on the St. Pete date. I think that is an absolutely dynamite, awesome slam dunk idea. Obviously, with Cup going to COTA that weekend, I like seeing them go to somewhere else. And I also like that they're going to have a street course race with the Truck Series. This will be, I believe, their very first one. And it'll help them get their feet wet before going to Coronado later in the year to join the other two series for a big triple header weekend at the beginning of summer. That said, I like the St. Petersburg date. Love it, love it, love it. That's a 10 out of 10 for me. I think that it gives the IndyCar drivers and literally anybody else that wants to throw their hat in the ring the ability to jump in a truck early in the season when points don't matter as much for each team, and allows, all of the Truck Series teams to basically not have to put a Cup guy to compete with some of the potential outside talent that might be interested in joining in. Just looking at the rest of the schedule, though, obviously we've said enough about Watkins Glen. I don't feel the need to continue to bring that up. I think it's dumb. Lime Rock, love that. Love that they're getting a standalone date. Love the IRP is still on the schedule. I think that it really should take on an Xfinity date as well, but, we can get into that a different time. As far as the rest of the schedule, honestly, I love that we're finally allowing the Truck Series calendar to end at reasonable dates compared to the Cup and Xfinity calendars. I love that we are ending the season with what looks to be 6 straight weeks of Truck Series action to end the season, whereas other years we would go 2 and 3 weeks without seeing somebody claim a victory in the NASCAR Truck Series. I remember, I believe it was 2022, when Ty Majeski punched his ticket to the championship race at Bristol for the Truck Series. That is less than ideal for the spread to be that drastic. With that said, I don't really have a terrible amount of issues with this. Ben, I'm actually going to play a little bit of devil's advocate with you about the road courses. I actually think that it allows the IndyCar guys, the V8 Supercars guys to enter the sport in a bit more of a cushioned environment, I would say. I think that, for both of those series, it is a bit more attuned to them to hop in a Craftsman truck, which has, a bit more downforce than an Xfinity car, has a little less power than the Cup and Xfinity cars, and, allows them to go to a course where it matches their skill sets a little bit more rather than forcing them to start, NASCAR life on an oval. So I think that, having all of these road course races isn't such a bad thing because, again, we need to remember that the Truck Series is, basically a part of the NASCAR ladder system at this point, especially with one of the key members of the series and their lifers leaving with Matt Crafton's retirement coming at the end of this year. So I think that as nice as it would be to have it be a bit more oval dominant, I do think that the oval quality is great for the amount of quantity that we have. And I think that sending the truck series to have a few standalone dates at some road courses isn't such a bad thing.
Yeah, sorry, just real quick to bounce off that. I don't disagree with that. I thought 5 was a little much. It would be like having 7 road courses in the Cup Series schedule, and I think that some people are already saying 6. I think 3 is a nice number to be at. I'm not saying trucks shouldn't go to road courses at all like they were in the 2000s and early 2010s. I think it's good to have them. I just think 5 is maybe a little bit further in that direction, certainly than I was expecting. But we'll see how it goes, and if it does what you're saying, obviously I think you got a perfect opportunity with them sharing the track with the IndyCar Series at St. Pete. So we'll see if that brings any crossover into the Truck Series on that weekend, or maybe even vice versa. I mean, we've been joking about Cody Ware maybe playing Ultimate Playoff Spoiler at Daytona. It wasn't that long ago he jumped in an IndyCar for a few races, so you just never know what is going to happen in this sport. But we'll see how it plays out. Obviously, 2026 is still a good few months down the line.
Indeed. And St. Petersburg, I'd like to see the IndyCar drivers give it a try. It could be a bit problematic as well. Scotty Mack in the Truck Series at St. Pete, why not? Let's have the Scotty Mack SVG reunion. There we go. Dan is already with me on that one. Let's have a reunion. I think that's a brilliant idea. Maybe it's segregated the cuts for Scotty Mack. Could be an idea. And, he's not been having a great year, has he? As well. In fact, none of the Penske's have over there in the IndyCar Series. We're still waiting for that calendar to come out. That could be within the next few weeks as well. So the Grid to 9 show will be very, very busy indeed. Now, before last Friday night's NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race at Richmond Raceway, Nice Motorsports announced some major changes to its ownership group. Team founder Al Nice is stepping back from day-to-day operations, and the team has a new majority owner, Josh Morris, CEO of DQS Solutions and Staffing, and Greg Fowler, the CEO of JF Electric and Family, teamed up to lead the Nice Motorsport forward into the future. Paying tribute to Al Nice, the team name will remain in the same as long-time team sponsors show significant investment in the organization's performance, passion, and growth. Now, during this transition, there have also been changes within the team leadership as well. Now, Cody Eiffel has been promoted from general manager to CEO and president of Nice Motorsports. His wife, Amanda Eiffel, will become the chief marketing officer. Crew chief as well, with Phil Gould, becomes the director of competition. And we know how good this team can be. We've seen it in the past where they went on a title run with Ross Chastain and Carson Hocevar in the last several years. Maybe with additional funding in place, putting the right people in the right places, and hiring the right directors, we could see Nice back in championship contention sooner rather than later. The team founder, Al Nice, said that this change allows him to return to the reason why he got into racing in the first place, the passion and excitement of competition, while handing over control of the team to business partners who believe in their team and employees. The graphic courtesy of Nice Motorsports as well. Ben, coming to you first on this one, do you have confidence that these major changes will eventually elevate Nice Motorsports on-track performance? I think a spider just fell on me. I'm having Paul O'Neill moment. God.
Yeah. Hope you're doing okay there, Josh.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think Nice obviously really broke through when Ross Chastain came over to that team. I know they had a GMS alliance at the time, but really when you look past Carson Hocevar, and I guess when Ross has been a bushwhacker over the last few years and come back to run a few races for that team, there's kind of been a lot to be desired. I think aside from a couple of standout top 10s, maybe even a couple of top 5s here and there. You get the sense that the Nice Motorsports wants a little bit more, thinks that they're capable of quite a bit more. At the same time, Al Nice just turned 80 years old. You can understand why he maybe wants to take a step back from the day-to-day business operations of running a race team. And he's still going to have his name on the company team name there with Nice Motorsports. They're not changing any of that. They're just changing some of the personnel. And I think sometimes, that can be something that can turn around an organization for sure, getting some new and fresh blood in there, so to speak, to make some changes and I think we've kind of seen that in the Cup Series with RFK Racing with Keselowski coming in. Jack Roush, I think, was a little more old school and kind of fell behind the times in that sense. And Brad came in there, and the teams kind of turned things around and really elevated their performance for the last couple of years compared to where they were in the 2010s. So I think, Nice Motorsports would certainly be capable of doing something similar here. We'll just have to wait and see how that plays out.
So you say that, Ben, but right now, all 3 RFK Racing cars are below the cut line.
That's true.
Cup Series. So I don't know how true that is, that he's turned it all around. But
well, I think Priest and Buescher have been running pretty well, but just haven't gotten a win. We've gotten a lot of parity this year. Keselowski's obviously had a down year with the team expanding, but I think they have bounced back from the complete doldrums they were in.
Yeah.
The Trevor Bayne, Ricky Stenhouse era. I'm old enough to remember that for sure.
Definitely. Anyhow, just to follow into the Nice Motorsports on-track performance, I have a lot of confidence in Phil Gould. I think that he has proven himself as one of the better crew chiefs in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, especially since his stint with Ross Chastain all the way back in 2019 that helped raise his profile after losing that deal with DC Solar in the Xfinity Series. So as far as that aspect is concerned, I think that their competition direction will be in good hands. As far as sponsors taking an ownership stake in a race team, we don't really see that terribly often in the modern day. The last major example that I can really think of off the top of my head that, had any staying power was MBV Motorsports when Valvoline and their parent company bought into MB2 Motorsports. They eventually ended up sponsoring the 10 car for Johnny Benson and later Scott Riggs, Patrick Carpentier, etc. And then that car got bounced around. So it didn't end up really being that successful of a partnership compared to the one that they had with Mark Martin in the past. I think that ultimately the hope for Nice Motorsports lies in their talent development. I'm going to be brutally honest, of their drivers that they currently have on their roster outside of Andres Perez, and who knows if that lasts into next year, if that's just like a fill-in spot after he was released from Spire and they needed a driver after they dropped Honeycutt. If they continue to build around him, we're talking about an ARCA champion, a guy that had a lot of success when he was in the NASCAR Mexico Series. So I think that he has very high potential to, become a cup level talent at some point. But if they don't intend to keep him and bring up a guy like Connor Jones, if they stick with the current roster that they have, I don't really see that team going anywhere more than they already, have progressed this season. I think that their calling card to this point was Caden Honeycutt, and losing him is a massive loss, I feel like. We're talking about a defending Cars Tour champion, a guy that's competed in the NASCAR Series, has had a lot of success there. I just feel like at the end of the day, your team really relies on the talent that you surround yourself with and that you put in the seat. And I really just am not, too fond of any of the drivers they currently have on roster outside of Perez. And I think that at best he might be a mid-season replacement for a guy that they got rid of. So I really don't have a whole lot of confidence in their prospects moving forward based on the talent that they currently have assembled. If they can keep Andres Perez, I think that is a very, very solid person to stick with. But without that being a promise for next season, and the current roster being Bailey Curry and Matt Mills, I'm not terribly thrilled with that prospect. So if I'm Nice Motorsports and I'm their leadership board, I think they need to invest in some talent and help that talent, raise up the equipment that they currently have. Because I think if you give Phil Gould a really fast and really solid race car driver, he can give them a fast truck to go win races with. And right now, I feel like that's something that team is currently struggling with, is having the drivers that have a winning pedigree that can go get them the victories necessary to qualify for the NASCAR playoffs.
Absolutely. Let's just dive in. You mentioned the on-track performance as well. Let's go right into it as well. I'll give you all the stats and facts about what's been going on so far because, as you've been saying, Bailey Curry's 20th place finish and 17 points scored in last Friday night's Truck Series race in Richmond weren't good enough for the number 45 Nice Motorsports Chevrolet Silverado to advance to the Owners' Championship playoffs. And as we know, Nice parted way, as you said, Tanner, with Caden Honeycutt a couple of weeks ago after he signed with a different manufacturer that's rumored to be Toyota for 2026. Now, at this time, Honeycutt was in the drivers and owners playoffs. However, Nice was willing to forego the drivers' title with Honeycutt as they placed Curry in the number 45 Chevrolet for the rest of the season. Now, the number 45 team entered the Richmond regular season final ahead of Grant Enfinger's number 9 CR7 Motorsports team in the owners' standings. In the race, Enfinger outscored Curry 33 to 17 points, and that made the difference for the number 9, who ended up taking the final spot by 9 points. But with Honeycutt finishing 10th and taking 37 points into the number 52 Halmer Friesen Racing Toyota Tundra, if he had earned that result in the Nice truck, it would have been good enough to put the 45 team into the owners' playoffs by 11 points. Now, Honeycutt gets to chase a drivers and owners title, while Nice isn't a part of either championship battle. That's the stats and facts that Tanner was on about as well just beforehand. And we'll go straight back to you, mate, with Honeycutt advancing to compete for both the drivers and owners titles with a different team, while Nice Motorsports missed out on both. How embarrassing is this just for the organisation, especially hours after making that huge announcement that we've just been discussing?
That's pretty damn embarrassing. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably about a 9, I would say. For them to come out and say that they cut their best driver, their lone stalwart that they had, and say, we are committed to winning championships, and then to kick out the one guy that even gave them a remote chance at having one, it's a pretty big own goal, you got to say. I don't really understand what their reasoning was. The reasoning they gave is that he was going to be with a different manufacturer next year, so they were worried that he was going to take data with him over to the next team and next manufacturer, which is widely rumored to be with Tricon Garage and Toyota. I just feel like this would be tantamount to Trackhouse saying that they've parted ways with Daniel Suarez and then immediately firing him, effective immediately, which, I mean, wouldn't be out of the realm for them based on how they've kind of moved with contracts over the past few years. But I feel like this is just a massive own goal of epic proportions for them to broadly proclaim that they're going to, compete for championships and that they're committed to doing so. And they gave up their one chance at possibly having an opportunity at that. Now, granted, you could chalk it up to, well, Caden Honeycutt didn't have a win in the NASCAR Truck Series to this point. You could make that argument, but the kid had been driving well enough this year to put himself in contention to make the playoffs, and did so with a team that he had only been with for at best 8 or 9 days. So that says a lot about what Caden Honeycutt brings to a race team and what he brings to the racetrack every week as far as his talent is concerned. He was able to slot into Stuart Friesen's truck and lock it into the postseason for himself, because that truck obviously already had a bid for the owners' playoffs after Friesen's miracle win at Michigan. So, yeah, I'd say it's definitely an own goal for that team. But at the end of the day, it's more about how you respond from this disappointment and embarrassment. And I think if Nice Motorsports can, spend these next 7 to 8 weeks plotting for next year, making some really good moves personnel-wise, whether that be in the car or in the truck, I should say, or on top of the pit box, I think that'll be ultimately, how this embarrassment is looked back upon in a year. But right at the moment, This is definitely a really tough look for the Nice Motorsports bunch, especially after making so many major announcements. And they'll be looking to respond in kind next year by hopefully returning to their winning ways.
Well, I mean, let's be completely fair here when it comes to Caden Honeycutt. I mean, but in terms of a driver's championship, it's not about determining who the best driver is. So I don't think they have too much to worry about on that front. If you get that reference, you've been on NASCAR Twitter over the last few days here. But in all seriousness, I think for Nice Motorsports, yeah, I mean, Tanner, you said it perfectly. I think it is a known goal. What's happened with especially on a week where they made such a major announcement regarding the future of a team and what they're going to try to do going forward to make a change and take a risk like that this late in the season and swap out your drivers here and think that you appear to be all set to compete for an owner's title and have a driver that looks set to compete for a driver's title. And now he's going to go out and do both of those things and you're going to do neither of those things. It is frankly just incredibly embarrassing for the organization. And honestly, I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, it is probably a 10 the top. I can't think of anything like this happening to another team this late in the regular season in the playoff era here. So it's not a good look for Nice at all.
Well, Ben, we're going to let you go from this evening's show after an hour and 6 minutes on the board. We're going to let you hit Route 66 and get out of here. Have you enjoyed tonight's show?
Yeah, hit Route 66 after 66 minutes. We timed it perfectly. How about that? But yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it. And again, sorry if there was background noise coming in here. I think I'll probably be in a different setup space next time. I've literally been in this apartment for 3 days. So trying to get used to the new space here. I probably would have just done it for my work office again, but I mentioned in that short video I posted yesterday, they've been working on the ceiling tiles on the new fire alarm system. We had to be out of the building by 5 p.m. Tonight because they're testing it before the new semester starts. So making do with what we can here, but appreciate the opportunity nonetheless. And thank you guys for letting me go unfiltered and raw emotions here, because I certainly had a lot to say about Dover, but anytime the schedule gets released, there's always a lot to unpack. So appreciate the opportunity to join you guys to do that tonight.
Oh, pleasure to have you join us as well, my friend, as well. And don't worry, we just thought you were watching The Shining. It's all fine, don't worry, as well. There has been a little girl standing behind you as well saying, "Come play with us, Ben." So I think you better go and deal with that as well. If you look in the mirror and red rum spelled backwards, we know you're in trouble. We'll let you get off as well.
Thank you guys, and have a great rest of your show. Appreciate it.
See you later. Ben will be back on Encore very soon as well for all the action throughout the rest of the season. Right, turning to our third story of the evening as well. According to Luis Ramirez from Motorsport.com, the NTT IndyCar Series is entering a critical stage of negotiations to add a race to the 2026 schedule in Mexico City. Now, as we mentioned at the top of the show, NASCAR isn't returning to Mexico City next year, which opens the door for IndyCar to race at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Now, it was rumored that IndyCar was originally going to announce the Mexico City race last month at Laguna Seca, but some things happened behind the scenes regarding this deal has put everything on pause. Ramirez said with IndyCar starting next season off at St. Pete, followed by a new street race in Dallas, the desire is to have Mexico City after Dallas and before Long Beach to cut down an almost month-long gap of no IndyCar action. He revealed that IndyCar officials traveled to Mexico City last week to continue negotiations, and they're reportedly working alongside a group called Grupo Orientable to bring IndyCar back south of the border. Ramirez added that IndyCar and track officials are figuring out which track layout to use, the Formula One circuit or the layout NASCAR used in June, with the shortcut at this 11th hour of negotiations. Link to this article is in the video description below and photo taken by Chris Owens from Penske Entertainment. Well, Kobe's back with us for this segment as well. We'll start off with you, my friend. How confident are you that IndyCar can seal the deal to take the series back to Mexico City during a time when its most popular driver is actually from Mexico?
Josh, I think it's imperative that they seal the deal on this. I know it's at the 11th hour, like you said, but this is something that they need to have happen, because right now, I remember I said this on our private chat. I believe it was either a few days ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I don't really know because time is moving so fast. But I said it's like it's literally like first, second, third and goal. Right now, maybe if another few days pass, it'll be fourth and goal. The ball is at the 1 yard line. What are you gonna do? And the quarterback, like you're at the 1 yard line, quarterback sneak, right? Like it seems easy, but is IndyCar going to get in the end zone for the touchdown to win the game, or are they going to fumble at the 1 yard line and another team picks up the ball? And I really hope it's the former instead of the latter, where they seal this deal. Given how things have been for IndyCar in the past, I understand why people may not be confident in them to get this done, but I'm just gonna cross my fingers, hope and pray that this happens, because they really need to capitalize on the popularity of Pato O'Ward during this time. I know it's kind of like we're on replay right now, because we've had this conversation several times, throughout the year about Mexico City and IndyCar, and this is a perfect opportunity, a golden opportunity, since the NASCAR race is obviously not going to happen in 2026 in Mexico City, so you have an opportunity, to stake your claim there. And I think this would be perfect for IndyCar, especially, they want to make this, logistically, possible for the teams. I think it's extremely smart, start off the year at the end of February, St. Pete, then you have the new street race outside the Cowboys Stadium, in Arlington, Texas, the Dallas street race coming up. And then you go to Mexico City. That's perfect. You just go from Florida to Texas, then just right across the border down into Mexico City. Sounds perfect for IndyCar teams. And we always complain about the gap early in the season. You have St. Pete, and then you have like nothing for a month before IndyCar returns. So you build up the hype for the IndyCar season, and then there's literally nothing that comes around, for several weeks. And I think if you're able to cut down the gap to Long Beach, that would really help, because, previous reporting was saying that IndyCar was looking to have the Mexico City race on the back end of the summer, which I thought was, extremely strange. But I think if they were able to get a date, in the early spring, it would be very helpful. And, we already know how popular Pato O'Ward is. And if you're able to get this race, and obviously Pato O'Ward's, going to continue to be the star of the series for as long as he wants to stay in IndyCar, I think those tickets, are going to sell like hotcakes, because if you went to if you saw the images, from Formula One race weekend for the Mexico City Grand Prix last time around, Pato wasn't even in the race. He was doing a free practice session, but you would think he was one of the top, drivers in Formula One, because they were flocking to him. Like, it was just really insane to see the long lines, in Mexico City for people to meet Pato O'Ward. And those same people who showed up to the Formula One Grand Prix race weekend to meet Pato, as McLaren F1's reserve driver. Imagine what it's going to look like in IndyCar. They're going to show up to that race, just for Pato O'Ward, because he's really a superstar, not just in Mexico, just all over. Like, people from, United States love him, other countries across the world, and he's really beloved, at home in Mexico. So I think that it's extremely important that IndyCar get this deal done, because if they're not able to get this deal done, it would be extremely disappointing, because it's something that truly needs to happen. Before I turn over to you, Tanner, got to catch up on the chat right quick. Hello to Omi, glad to see you here. And Denver, saying that Caden from the NASCAR section, all that you guys are having, Caden Honeycutt keeping Stuart Friesen, I believe you mean, name on the truck during the playoffs is a very classy move. Totally agree with you on that. And then Denver also says, if Mexico City come back, could we see the return of more international races like Australia and Canada in the future? Well, they're in Canada right now, Denver, with the street race in Toronto. And I know there's been a lot of questions about the future of that, because we don't know if Toronto is going to be back on the calendar next year. And you wonder, can IndyCar, do they want to do 2 international races in 1 year? I mean, it would be, from a logistical standpoint, for them to, go to Canada and Mexico. That would be a lot better than, flying somewhere overseas. And if you wanted to, let's say, go to Australia, let's say race, at Surface Paradise, if you wanted to, or Adelaide, or Sydney Motorsport Park, just spitballing names of, racetracks in Australia. If they wanted to go to those tracks, it would probably, have to be, maybe make it the season opener. And instead of, like St. Pete opening the season, late February, maybe you moved it like to early February, have a season opener in Surface Paradise, to allow, for travel and all of that, so you can have your international race in Australia or somewhere else across the pond. Because I think it would be really hard to try to, get an IndyCar race in, on a place like Australia, in the middle of the season, something like that. I think it would have to come towards the top of the schedule or on the back end. And then you add a little more. You're talking about other international races, but you added South America to that equation as well. Remember, we were supposed to go to Argentina, but that really fell apart last year. And I don't really think a lot of the IndyCar paddock were interested in going to Argentina in the first place. I think, Ricardo Juncos, the co-owner of Juncos Hollinger Racing, he was the one that was really pushing the Argentinian race. And at the time, you had Agustin Canapino in the series, and they really wanted to try to get to Argentina, but we honestly haven't heard anything about going to that country in a very long time. And John asked the question, like, has anything been said about Will Power's contract situation for next year? Well, the only thing that we know is that Will Power said himself that he's probably not going to know anything until after the IndyCar season finale at Nashville. Yeah, so at the end of the month, we should have an answer on Will Power's contract situation, whether he stays with Team Penske, gets that contract extension, or, has to move on and find a new home for 2026.
I think Josh wanted to toss something in there. I think you're muted, pal. Uh-oh. Having to do a little bit of fill here. As far as Will Power is concerned, though, I would really like to see him be back with Team Penske.
Always have a spare.
Oh, there we go. We're back.
Always have a spare microphone when you go on air. Sorry about that, guys. It died. We've been on air too long. The mic's died. What I was about to say was I wanted to jump in quickly because MotoGP are staying in Argentina, but they've left the Termas de Rio Honda circuit, and they're going back to the circuit that F1 used in the late 90s, and that circuit's being remodified to bring it up to a higher grade standard. So with that track getting some funding in, maybe IndyCar, like they did when Formula One went to COTA, they could tag on to the back of the fact that, well, MotoGP's gone there. Let's see if we can go to Argentina for a one-off race and tag on to the back of MotoGP, having built the circuit up for us. No revenue needs put into it. MotoGP's footed the bill. It might make sense in 2027, 2028 to go there and just have a year and have a look around. Don't think it'll be for next year, though.
I appreciate the insight there. To get back to the question at hand, though, about IndyCar going to Mexico City, ever since we got that dumb comment last year that Pato O'Ward hasn't been on enough billboards, that we can't go to Mexico because of that, I have been making it my mission to eat as many Kit Kat bars, as many Mission tortillas, as many electrolyte bottles as I can. Like, I have been trying to get that man on some more billboards to get this deal across the finish line, and I just hope that Roger Penske can find it within himself to meet Grupo. What was the name of the group? Grupo Rentable. I hope that he can help get them across the finish line to get this race going, because my God, we cannot do another race at Thermal, because I think that is going to be the opposite side of the coin if we have to, defer Mexico for another year. Please, no more Thermal. Terrible idea, terrible race product, just awful, awful, awful. That's a 0 out of 10 race weekend, and it proved itself this year when it didn't even have enough infrastructure to allow the race's filming to actually complete itself live without a massive interruption in the middle. As far as my confidence that IndyCar is actually going to get this done, I mean, here's my thing. Roger Penske has probably a Scrooge McDuck's worth of money at minimum. Like, would it kill you to spend some of that? I know it's not money of mine, so I'm probably speaking completely out of turn here, but would it kill you to just put some of that money into investing in the series? Would it kill you to do that? Like, again, I'm not trying to pocket watch here or anything, but the man is a multi-billionaire, obviously owns part of the Speedway, owns most of the racing series, owns a racing team in multiple disciplines. Would it kill you to just put some money where your mouth is and get IndyCar back international? Because you have all of this incredible international talent in your series. You have Pato O'Ward, the most popular driver, obviously a dynamite young star in the series who is still making a name for himself and is likely to finish the season P2 in points and, is a weekly contender. You have Alex Palou, a native of Spain, obviously in a Spanish-speaking country like Mexico. I'm sure he would do very well there in terms of, fan engagement. you have all of these great drivers, as Denver mentioned, from down under. You have, obviously Scott Dixon, Will Power. You have a bunch of these guys that would probably love to make a home trip one of these days back to Surfers Paradise. I know that's a name that old IndyCar fans would love to see back on the schedule. Obviously, moving up to Canada, you have Devlin DeFrancesco in the field for now. Obviously heading back to Montreal, that'd be awesome. But if not, they've run races, I believe, in Edmonton and Vancouver before. There are other options to potentially explore if Toronto can't work out. So just to circle back to the question at hand, I mean, my confidence in IndyCar is probably pretty low. It's probably like a 3 or a 4. But considering that Pato O'Ward is probably in everybody's ear at IndyCar headquarters, I would bump this up to a 5 at least, and I'd say they've probably got a 50-50 shot of getting this done. But again, I just feel like Roger Penske needs to, open the wallet up a little bit, help make this a little bit more interesting for the promoters down there in Mexico, and get this deal done. You have so much money and resources at your disposal to help make this series better, and you need to put your money where your mouth is.
I would love it if we went back to Surfers Paradise personally as well. Bring back IndyCar to Pocono or Dover. It says, John, Pocono, less likely. Dover, possible. Coming to it. Pocono, I think the drivers like life a bit too much to try and go back to Pocono. Not in the state it's in right now. Pocono would need a lot of work into it before we ever went back there. Literally, the last time we raced there was in 2019. Everybody was like, "Let's get the hell out of here." God had to intervene with the weather to stop the race early in order just to get us out of there. After Takuma Sato decided to become Cannonball 2 into the turn 2 fence. If anything, Adelaide the best place, second to last race of the season if they go out to Australia. Adelaide is in talks to bring another Motor Series sport back to its streets. I do know that, so we'll see which one it will be. There's rumours that Formula E want to go there. IndyCar has been mentioned as well. There's also been a couple of mentions of NASCAR, but I'm not really believing that one out of the mix because everybody always says, "Oh, NASCAR's going here." The main traction seems to be with Formula E. With NASCAR in second place as well, as we're mentioning. So, Matt White isn't here tonight, if you haven't guessed already, after an hour and 22 minutes. So we won't have a grid EPI update. We expect Matt to return next Wednesday night when I'll be dragging back into the commentary box. Well, he'll update you on the EPI update for the last 2 weeks. Right now, here's Kobe with the latest for the week's headlines.
Thanks, Josh. Time for some more motorsports news from around the world. After being together for 6 years and 2 different stints in the ABB F1 Formula E World Championship, Envision Racing and Robin Franz are parting ways. Franz first joined Envision in season 5 and stayed there 4 seasons before joining App Cooper in season 9. Then Franz returned to Envision the following season, where he spent the last couple of seasons. During his Envision tenure, Franz has 2 wins in the Paris E-Prix and New York City E-Prix, 15 podiums, 468 championship points scored, 83 career starts, and a best finish of 4th in the Drivers' Championship during his debut season with the team. Team principal Sylvain Philippi says Franz has delivered excellent results, cracking drives, and been a valued part of the team. Graphic courtesy of Envision Racing. Ex-Formula One driver Logan Sargent will make his return to racing next month. Sargent is entering the final 2 races of the 2025 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship season with PR1 Matheson Motorsports, his number 52 LMP2 team. He'll compete in the endurance races, the 6-hour battle on the bricks at Indianapolis, and the 10-hour season-ending Motul Petit Le Mans at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. The former Williams Racing F1 pilots co-drivers will be former IndyCar driver Benjamin Peterson and Naveen Rao. Sargent said he's excited to be jumping back into a car and drive at 2 special tracks on the IMSA schedule. Photo courtesy of PR1 Matheson Motorsports. And what's been a remarkable year of growth and consistency behind the wheel, Meyer Shank Racing confirmed that Marcus Armstrong will return to the number 66 Honda in 2026 in the first 15 races of the 2025 NTT IndyCar Series season. Armstrong has earned 10 top 10 finishes, with Chip Ganassi racing downsizing to a 3-car team at the end of last year due to IndyCar's new charter system in place. Ganassi was able to put Armstrong in a seat at MSR thanks to a new technical alliance between the two teams. Armstrong currently sits 9th in points with 2 races left in the season. He said he's grateful to return to Meyer Shank Racing next year and praised them for their professionalism and attention to detail throughout the year. Photo courtesy of the team. And as previously discussed on Grid Encore, ThorSport Racing announced that 3-time NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series champion Matt Crafton will retire from full-time racing at the end of the 2025 season to go along with 3 titles. The 49-year-old native of Tulare, California, has 15 career wins, 135 top 5s, 331 top 10s, and currently has 585 career starts and an impressive consecutive start streak dating back to the early 2000s. The last time a Truck Series race took place without Matt Crafton in the field was all the way back on October 13th in the year 2000. I was just 1 year old the last time, there was a truck race without Matt Crafton, just to show, his longevity. And I'm 26 now, so Matt Crafton's been around for a long time. And despite all the possibilities over the years of, missing a race, due to illness or injury, Crafton avoided every obstacle to have a career that lasted for over 25 years. And by the end of the 2025 season, Crafton will have 592 career Truck Series starts, only 8 shy of the iconic number of 600 races. For 17 straight seasons from 2007 through 2023, he finished inside the top 10 in points, but has missed the playoffs in the last 2 years. In 2026, the number 88 Menards Ford F-150 will have a new driver behind the wheel, and ThorSport has decided to move Ty Majeski over to this ride. Since joining ThorSport in 2022, Majeski's won 6 races, 11 poles, and led more than 1,500 laps, including a win in last year's Truck Series championship. Now he'll carry on the number 88 team's legacy starting next year at Daytona. A photo you see on your screen, courtesy of ThorSport Racing. And in a statement, Ty Majeski said that he is honored to take over the number 88 Menards truck for ThorSport Racing in 2026. In 2021, Duke, Rhonda, and Allison Thorson took a big chance on me when my NASCAR career could have been over. I'm so thankful for their support and this opportunity. The 88 Menards truck has been a staple in the NASCAR Truck Series for many years with Matt Crafton. Their partnership together yielded many wins and 3 championships, and my goal is to continue the legendary legacy that they have already built. I'm looking forward to partnering with Menards, a proud Wisconsin-based company with the same goals and vision that I have to win. With that being said, there is still a lot of business to take care of in 2025 with our Soda Since 98 group. We're as determined as ever to defend our championship. And in his continued quest to reach 500 career wins in the NASCAR Cup Series, Casey Mears is back with Garage 66 this weekend. Mears will drive the number 66 Ford with sponsorship from SI Yachts on Saturday night at Daytona International Speedway. He's currently 10 starts away from competing in 500 Cup Series races and said he's excited about the opportunity to return to one of his favorite tracks. And team owner Carl Long said they secured a Roush Yates engine and a quality pit crew for the race. And remember, the same number 66 Ford with Chandler Smith behind the wheel was running extremely well, toward the front of the pack with that Roush Yates horsepower during the duels earlier this year before Smith, was taken out in a hard wreck. Graphic courtesy of Garage 66. And that's all of the headlines I have for y'all this week. Now I'm going to turn over to Tanner for everyone's favorite game, Pick a Winner.
Thank you, Kobe. And before we start by picking MotoGP and IMSA, I'm going to do something a bit special. So for every Pitbox Press NASCAR newsletter that I do before a restrictor plate super speedway style race, whether that be at Daytona, Talladega, or Atlanta, I often use a very unscientific method to pick my winner for that week. And that is, on Monday or at some point during the week, I order Chinese food and I take my winner pick from a fortune cookie and the lucky numbers that come with it. So in a grid tonight first, I am going to do that here live on the air. So let's go ahead and get this guy opened up. All right. Set the cookie aside for later. I'll read the fortune first. You will make change for the better. Very vague, but thank you. The numbers I have to choose from, and I will put them on air here. I'm assuming the camera will focus in. It's not going to. All right, so we have 2, 15, 20, 21, 33, and 34, which honestly is pretty shocking because normally I'll get a bunch of numbers that somehow aren't Cup Series driver numbers. So I have a choice between Austin Cindric, the 20 car, so Christopher Bell, Josh Berry in the 21, either Austin Hill or Jesse Love in the 33, and Todd Gilliland in the 34. You know what? I'm going with Todd Gilliland to win the Daytona race. I think that he has shown a lot of speed and maturity at these super speedway style races. Obviously led a lot of laps at Atlanta earlier last year. And Front Row Motorsports is looking for a definitive boost. So I'm going to stick with him for this race. Todd Gilliland is my pick a winner for Daytona. Now we're going to move on to pick a winner for MotoGP. I guess that I'll start. I'll go with Marc Marquez.
Yeah, I think he's the easy choice at this point, Marc Marquez. That's what I'm going to go with as well, because I don't really see anybody else, who could contend with him at the moment. And as we've talked about in recent shows, which has become a famous phrase on this show, Marc Marquez, has one hand on the championship and about 4 fingers. He just needs to get that thumb on there, and then it's going to be a done deal.
Got a dozen sprints this year as well, 12 out of 13, and Marquez has won every single sprint so far this year. Mark has won the last 6 events. Wipeout. So I think it's clear it's going to be Marc Marquez. But I would just like to point out we're at Balaton Park, brand new track in Hungary for MotoGP this weekend. World Superbikes were there a couple of weeks ago, and it was a crash fest. We had a huge accident, several riders injured, and a red flag in their first race meeting as well. So it could be a wild weekend. The riders don't like how small it is. We're all worried as well, so it could be a very interesting weekend. So this is possibly the one not to miss throughout the entire season. So watch the sprint and the Grand Prix across the weekend.
Indeed. Now moving over to IMSA, they're going to Virginia International Raceway, I believe. And it'll only be the GT division this weekend. So starting with me, I'm going to go with the AO Racing number 77 Porsche for this weekend at VIR.
And I promise I'm not copying you, Tanner, but I'm also going with the number 77 Rexy Porsche, AO Racing. I really like what they've been able to do this season. I think, Lauren Heinrich, Klaus Bachler, they're a really good duo. And, I just think that they'll get the job done. I know that this is probably our most difficult pick or winner of the season for the GT races, especially with the GTD Pro and the GTD classes, combined together. Because, most of the time you'll see the GTD Pro, car ahead. But, since the cars have the exact same BOP, but the only thing that separates, they're all pro driver lineups and then the Pro-Am lineups in GTD. Sometimes those Pro-Am lineups are extremely strong. And they might end up, beating the all-pro lineup. So you just really never know. But I'm just going to stick with what I consider a safe bet, picking the number 77 Rexy Porsche at VIR, which is actually my home track on the IMSA schedule. I live 45 minutes away from that track. Really, really, really nice circuit. Need to get out there sometime.
Absolutely. Oh,
Here's unmuted. Now I'm going to be throwing it over to Josh for the Hots and Knots segment. So what do we got?
Oh, thank you, Jan. It's time for Hots and Knots, and in place of Matt White, I'll take over, and it's of course sponsored by insert your own name here. So this is going to be quite an interesting one for Hots and Knots this weekend. It was a smoother weekend than what we've had. MotoGP in the Red Bull Ring, of course. NASCAR thing has got to start. Let's go with Hots, and Tan, I hope you might join me here. NASCAR, what a hot race. Fantastic. Enjoyed every single second of it at a track we usually don't get a lot of running at. It was crash bang well up every 5 seconds.
Yeah, I felt that the race at Richmond was fantastic, and I hope that we can bring a softer tire to practically every other venue that's put on substandard racing this year, because clearly that made a massive difference.
The truck race was also quite entertaining as well. I enjoyed that one coming in. That's definitely a hot. MotoGP, Marc Marquez dominating as well across the 2 races. He now leads by a whopping over 120 odd points. He could actually be crowned champion before we go out of the European season, which is mad. But any other hots you spotted throughout the weekend as well, Tanner, that you want to throw it?
As far as hots are concerned, Daniel Suarez put on an incredible effort all race long in Richmond, even despite his incident with Tyler Reddick and Ty Gibbs. But outside of that, I definitely am looking a little bit more forward to the knots as far as this past race.
We'll kick it off. Go on.
Okay. So my biggest knot is going to NASCAR themselves in their ongoing court case with 2311. They described ARCA as tiny and basically discarded the entire notion that they are a monopoly by calling ARCA a non-threat to them, essentially, in their filing to hopefully defer the preliminary injunction that 2311 and Front Row Motorsports have filed. I really just don't think they understand what the word monopoly means at this point, and it's starting to just get kind of concerning. I felt that coming into this entire litigation that it was going to obviously be more of a battle between Jeffrey Kessler and Chris Yates, who will be representing NASCAR in this, and Jeffrey Kessler is representing the teams in this particular court case. And they've had a few notable clashes in the courtroom before that have not gone any of the ways for Yates. And I just feel like that team's lack of research or understanding of the sport, no matter how much information they're given about it, continues to rear its ugly head again and again throughout this case. And it's just really unfortunate considering that, I mean, I don't think that anybody that watches the sport really wants to, be rooting for one side or the other necessarily, but NASCAR is really not making it easy on themselves to win this court case based on the representation that they chose to align themselves with in this particular event. So that would be my huge knot of the week outside of some of the schedule changes. But Josh, what about you? What are some of the knots that you have from this past racing weekend?
Don't really have one, to be fair. It's one of those rare weekends where one doesn't come up. I enjoyed it all. It was a fantastic NASCAR race. It was a great weekend for MotoGP. It was all good as well. Denver says, if anything, Adelaide, the best place. Second to last race, they go back to Australia. Completely agree as well. Could be in. IndyCar needs to go back to Australia, says Adam as well on the board. Pick a winner for him, says MotoGP Sprinter features Marc Marquez. IMSA at Virginia is the number 77 AO Rexy Porsche coming in as well. Absolutely true. Please send help. I'm going to go GB3 for Omi on the JBM channel this week. And they are Brands Hatch with 2 DRS stones this week. That might be my other knot as well. Omi's going to be in for a difficult weekend. What's hot? Incredible NASCAR Cup Series race at Richmond, SVG 14th. He did improve a lot. And I just loved it. It was a great race. It didn't mind the 4 a.m. Saturday night call-up as well. What's hot? SVG ripping the walls at Richmond and showing and slowly showing the gains on ovals. Absolutely, from Denver as well. Okay, so taking a look at our upcoming schedule for this coming weekend as well. Stay tuned for Grid Live pre-race. That's previewing the NASCAR at Daytona, and IndyCar is back at Milwaukee. Now, Sunday Grid Live wrap-up is 90 minutes after the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship race at Virginia International Raceway. Monday, Grid Encore is at 7 p.m. Eastern, recapping the Xfinity race at Daytona, the ARCA at Madison, and Indy next at Milwaukee. Please do continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for helping us reach 1,700 subscribers. And we're now inching closer to our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications so you'll always know when we go on the air. And you can follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Deshelle, Robin, David, and Matthew who invest each month in the Grid Network. And we encourage you to join these fine folks, help us keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can afford to send our team to the track more often and continue growing our media outlet. The link to all of this is in the video description below. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want. Consider buying a specific on-air personality cup of coffee, and I will thank you on the air. So for Kobe Lambeth, Tanner Smith from the Pit Box Press, and Ben Schneider from Grid Encore and lastcar.info, I'm Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Good night.